Alex, joined by Harry, and we'll also have a special guest. But I'll let you, Alex and Harry, do a quick intro first.
Yeah. So I'm Alex. Hi, I've been here for around 6 months at Lovable, and I work on everything on the product side when it comes to making the AI work better, just making the product better in general. And and I love it.
Hey guys, my name's Harry. I work with operations teams in enterprise companies to help them build software, mainly in Lovable these days. I also have a YouTube channel where I try and share everything as well. You can find it at Harry Roper online.
Cool. And I forgot to do an intro myself. So my name is Christian. I'm part of the product team here at Lovable. I've been shy of a year. It's been an awesome journey. And then we have Stefan manning the chat. He's heading community. So if you have any questions, he'll be bringing them up on the screen, and we're going to try to keep this as interactive as possible. But as I said, today we have a special guest. We have Zeke from the Replicate team. So Zeke, why don't you introduce yourself and tell us a little bit about Replicate at the same time? So Zeke, audio is off again for some reason.
We got it.
How about now?
Yeah.
Yes, perfect.
Amazing. Okay. Hey, let's try that again. I'm Zeke. I'm a developer advocate at Replicate. So my job is just to make the product easier to use and help surface the experiences of the users to the rest of the team so we can make it a better experience for people. So I live in Berkeley, California. Haven't played around with Lovable yet, but I love the concept of talking to language models in a sort of interactive natural language process to build applications. So pretty excited to jump in. As far as Replicate, I can try and give a quick demo here. Let me share my screen. I'm gonna go big and share the whole screen. Can you see, is everyone seeing a infinite window?
We can. We got it.
So Replicate is a website and an API and a platform that lets you run AI models with an API. So the idea behind Replicate is it should be easy to run AI models without being an expert in machine learning. So just to give a quick example, we have lots of different models on Replicate. Fluff is an example of a really fast and powerful image generation model where you type in a text prompt and it generates an image. One of the cool things about Replicate is that you can play around on the website, fill out a form to get started, and then every time you generate something, you have these code snippets that you can take and use to generate, to sort of take that model and run it in your own code using Node.js, Python, or I think other programming languages. Replicate also has a playground, which is maybe sort of a newer feature that people might not know about, but it lets you kind of run models and generate a bunch of outputs simultaneously and compare them. So here's me generating a bunch of videos of capybaras taking a steam bath with yuzu fruit all around them. It's super fun to play around with this and kind of addictive. We also have all different types of models, so it's not just one modality. You can generate images, you can generate video, you can do text-to-speech, you can do all sorts of different things. So if you go to replicate.com/explore, you can see all these different collections with different types of models and recommendations for each. Replicate also has an API, so in addition to being able to run models, you can also create models, and you can deploy them, and you can also, if you're building models for production use, you can actually create what's called a deployment, which lets you control the scaling behavior of your model. So how many you're running and what type of hardware they're running on and all that sort of stuff. So it can really scale from just tinkering around, kicking the tires, running models for the first time to actually building your own custom models and deploying them at scale.
Super.
Nice.
Maybe a question from my side, like what's the typical user that is using Replicate today? I guess it's a broad spectrum. What are you seeing?
It is a broad spectrum, but initially we've been sort of focused on indie hackers who are building apps and products, but don't necessarily want to invest in hiring an ML engineer to be able to build their own custom models, but still want to take advantage of being able to incorporate AI capabilities into the apps that they build. So my career as a software engineer has mostly been about, sort of like, I mean, it's kind of been this way for all of us, but basically standing on the shoulders of giants and kind of like leveling up using these tools that get easier and easier to use. So for example, I worked for Heroku 10 years ago, and I went from that helped me level up from being, sort of a lowly web designer to all of a sudden someone who could build a web application, deploy it to the cloud, scale it, connect the database really easily. And now we're in this world where you could do that sort of thing with AI as well. So to answer your question, the original sort of intention was to support the indie hacker crowd, but we also have large enterprises running their own custom models on Replicate as well, including giant companies like IBM. So really the full gamut.
Makes sense. Cool. And I think we're going to be using Replicate today for some of the functionality we're going to build out, and I think we're going to be touching upon maybe less than 1% of what Replicate offers, but I think it's going to be a good intro to what's possible and why it's probably a pretty powerful combo you want to explore together with Lovable and Supabase. But maybe an intro on like this kind of like stream, this sort of string of sessions that we're doing. So we've done a lot of office hours that have been focused on building a pretty simple app within the hour window. And what we end up doing is always like building something pretty simple that doesn't allow us to show like the level of complexity you can get to with Lovable. And it also means that we're like not putting focus on the other important aspects of launching a product, like how you monetize it, how you kind of reach out to the first users, how do you build an audience, how do you market it. So this Zero to Launch series, which today we're doing session 2, is more is kind of trying to address these two things. We want to build an app that goes beyond one single session, something more complex, and we also want to touch upon elements that are outside the actual building. A building is 5% of what it takes to actually ship something that people are going to use. So on the last session, what we did is I'm going to share my screen actually and show what we built. We built the first version of a language tutor that basically allows you to you can log in, and then it had some basic functionality, like it would allow you to I think chat to an AI Spanish language teacher, so you could have this conversation. You could replay the AI messages and actually listen to them.
¿En qué puedo estudiar español? Hola.
We could also like translate the messages into English, and you would be able to replay. And we also have this functionality where you could record your voice and get that translated into the input, so you could practice your oral skills as well. So that's what we did last time. Today we're going to add some new stuff, and before we talk about exactly what we're going to be building, I think we want to just do a quick sort of cover some housekeeping items with Lovable. So I think I'll hand it to you, Alex, and then over to you, Harry, after that.
Yeah, cool. So what we've released this week, if you don't know, is that we have a super nice way to export Figma designs to Lovable now that we've built with Builder.io. So they have a best-in-class Figma to code plugin that you can install, and from their plugin you can press a button to export it to Lovable. So I encourage you to read the blog post and to try it out. It works best with Figma designs that have been done with automatic layout, so that are kind of responsive. And if you use those, then you can get near pixel perfect results. We think it's going to unlock so many use cases to get really much higher quality designs, and to bring designers into Lovable and let them iterate on the design and build products from their prototypes. So that's really cool, and that was released this week. We had a live stream about this yesterday that I encourage you to watch as well if you want to know more about it and see some examples. Then let me go back and share another one. So another small thing that I can show you that we released, I think last week as well, is that we've made it a little bit easier for you to understand that you can restore previous versions of your projects or preview them in separate tabs, because we often hear that users really don't know that they can revert things. But when you use Lovable, if things go wrong, you can always go back to previous version, and that's something we talk about in every streaming session we make. So we think this should help a little bit to visualize previous versions. And here I've zoomed in a little bit so you don't see some new incoming features. That's a bit of a teaser. Yeah, so another small thing that we did is that we've worked on improving the real-time support for OpenAI with WebRTC. We had support for this before with WebSockets, because that was what OpenAI supported. They didn't have WebRTC, and now they have added that, so we've made sure that it works. And on the topic of versioning, so this is mostly like just aesthetic changes so that you can see more easily when to revert, how to revert. But we're working on making that just simply more intuitive, and make it feel like you can just go back to previous versions, or work a bit differently. So we think this is going to help a lot, and this is one of the things we're working on right now. Another thing that I think I talked about last time that we're still working on is that we're just generally trying to we're doing a lot of things in our backend, I would say at the moment, to make the product just simply faster. And after that, we'll have a lot of improvements in just the performance, and by that I mean in terms of accuracy when you chat, that it's gonna get better. So we're very excited for the coming month. And yeah, I can think of some other things, but I think that the coming month at Lovable is going to be very, very exciting. So just keep watching these sessions, and watch out online for some announcements.
Super. All right, Harry. And now, what are we exactly adding to our app? And I forgot to tell the sort of background story, explain why we chose a Spanish tutor in the first place. Maybe you can also cover that.
Sure. So just a quick recap of what we built so far. We're building a Spanish learning app that we want to launch on Product Hunt, and we're taking you guys through the journey from building it from the very beginning to launching it on Product Hunt at the end. The idea here is to show you that it's very possible to build a SaaS with Lovable, first of all, but also that you can do it. And hopefully this session you can follow along and learn some things that can help you launch your own app as well. Why did we make a Spanish language learning app? Well, I'm here in Argentina, and I have not learned very much Spanish. And Christian is from Barcelona, and he speaks very good Spanish. A lot of the time, when we're talking and such, it might slip into a bit of Spanglish, but I'm very bad. So this tool really helps me with learning, and hopefully it'll help a lot of you with learning Spanish as well. Zeke also speaks French, he told us, and did something similar in the past with AI tools as well to help his learning. So we think there's something here in terms of a product that we can build and hopefully get out. I'm sharing my screen right now to show you the features. Maybe we can bring that up. But you'll see here there's a QR code, and we'd like you guys to help us decide what feature should we implement first. So scan that, and you should be able to access the page. I've got it up. Wow, a lot of you are voting already. We've got some crazy votes on AI-generated classes. Shortly followed by an admin portal.
This is it's unauthenticated to keep it simple for viewers, which means that it's pretty easy to game. So if you really care about a feature, I'm sure you can make that happen.
You could quadruple click. It looks like though we're going to be moving forward with AI generated classes. So why don't we start with that? Let me share my screen. I'll get Lovable up, and we should be good to go. Are you guys ready to start?
Let's go.
Let's go. Cool. Okay. All right, guys. So first of all, something that I'm going to do is jump into our settings, and I'm going to come to manage knowledge. Something that sometimes maybe gets skipped over is that when we create new pages, they get added to the sidebar. So here's a good example of how to use custom knowledge. I'll just say every time we create a new page, make sure we add it to the sidebar. That way I'm not going to repeat myself if I ever have to. Okay. And let's add our courses page. Now I've got a prompt that was prepared for me, but I'll run you through it so that you can see exactly what we're doing here. So basically I'm asking Lovable, can I add a courses page that should enable users to create a course? A course is a set of 10 multiple choice questions about a topic that is defined by the user. The course should be generated and listed in the courses page using OpenAI and function calling. Superbase edge function. Users should then be able to click start the course, which should lead the user through all the questions one by one, make the experience ongoing through the course fun. Let's run this and see how it goes. So what are we doing here? Basically, we're using OpenAI and we're telling Lovable, can you please talk and create a function that's going to allow us to use OpenAI's chat completions. This means then we can provide a prompt to OpenAI to ask it to generate a course. And using function calling, we can create a really clean JSON object so that it can always easily create the courses for us. We'll see what Lovable does here. In this case, we're going to create a courses table. We're going to create a courses questions table. We're going to add RLS, so only users who are logged in can access them. Users can create their own course. Users can view their own courses. Users can update their own courses, and users can delete their own courses. So we won't be able, other people won't be able to see my courses, but I'll be able to save them to my account so I can visit them later. Okay, this looks good. So I'm going to tell Lovable that the SQL looks fine. And because of the integration, it's run that in Superbase and created the tables for me. I don't need to be in Superbase here. So this is going to start implementing what we need. Here's the backend function. It's using chat completions. You're a language learning expert who creates engaging multiple choice questions. And it's going to structure it as a JSON object and make sure that the response is in JSON as well. Cool. It's then going to create that courses page.
Pretty cool to get the AI to write prompts for other AIs.
You mentioned it in the last stream, but I think it's very meta, right? To have the AI write its own prompt. But it's really useful, and you can see it's quite clear.
Zeke, I have a question. Is Replicate also doing chat endpoints, or they're mostly on the video and image space?
Yeah, I was kind of sweating there because I saw the most popular thing was, generate complete class implementations with Replicate. And of course, we do have a variety of language models on Replicate, but they are not necessarily our bread and butter right now. So you're going to get better results running OpenAI models, Anthropic, Gemini Studio, etc. when it comes to language models. So yeah, the place where Replicate really shines is with all the other types of models right now. Basically anything doing multimedia, text-to-speech, image generation, video generation, audio generation, that sort of thing.
Makes sense. Even audio.
Nice.
I think we'll make sure we add some cool multimedia stuff.
Okay, sweet.
So we hit an error here. I'm just going to use the magic try to fix it button.
And maybe while that loads, I'm curious, Zeke, are you using a lot of AI in your day-to-day? Maybe not products like Lovable, but is it integrated in your workflow?
Oh, definitely, yeah. I mean, I use Cursor, and I've kind of been trying to embrace a natural language approach to programming for a good year plus now, where I really try not to write any code at all. I mean, I'm still looking at the code, making sure that it does what I expect it to do and writing tests and everything, but my goal is to just get better and better at writing English that gets the language model to write the code that I expect. So Cursor is my tool of choice. Of course, I also use GitHub Copilot, stuff like that. But I love the idea of the abstractions getting, higher and higher to the point where with something like Lovable, you're actually just having an entirely natural language-based conversation, and you're getting sort of farther and farther away from the code and just seeing the manifestation of a working app.
Yeah, makes sense.
This seems like the natural progression for software development, so it's super exciting.
Oh, yeah.
Cool. I can take a question from the chat in the meantime. So we have this question from Bobby asking, does the Lovable team have any plans to allow the chat to scrape links so it's much easier to use docs with Lovable? And I think the answer is that it's definitely on the radar. So stay tuned for that. Yeah, it would be great.
It's running into some small errors, which is fine. One of the cool things you can do is just feed this to Lovable and hopefully come with a solution to fix it.
We have some exciting stuff coming with our Superbase integration, where we'll do a lot of this. We'll basically fetch the logs directly from the edge functions from Superbase directly, so you don't have to do copy pasting and either go to the admin dashboard to debug yourself.
So I don't want to promise too much, but we think the product's going to get much better in the coming weeks, and we have some internal versions of this, so it's a bit frustrating to not be able to use it right now, but it's not completely ready for prime time, and it's going to come soon.
So just to back up a little bit, and I think you may have touched on this a little bit, but by default, when I start using Lovable, what are the sort of backend services that are at its disposal? There's Superbase, OpenAI. Do I have to bring my own keys for those things, or configure them with OAuth, or how does that work?
Yeah, so I can mention, so for Superbase, you can use OAuth, and that's the most, I would say, native integration we have, where you're really connected through Lovable to your Superbase account, and that lets us do all the cool things of like fetching the logs, talking to the database, seeing what's in there. That's what's very nice. And then we have, I don't know how to say it, maybe it's like a second tier of integrations where we are not connecting with OAuth, but we are, I would say Lovable knows a lot about the APIs for these products and knows how to use your API keys. And in combination with Superbase, then we can store your secrets and ask you, for example, for your OpenAI API key, and then just understand how to use that. So we're trying to make things as seamless as possible without locking you too much. And I guess that's one of the things that people like about Lovable, is that you can take the code, you can export it to GitHub if you want, and then you can go wherever you want with the code. There's no strings attached, and that's very nice. But if you stay within Lovable, then we won't have the best view and the best understanding of all this context of all the things you're connected to.
Okay,
so go ahead.
Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah. I was just curious about the GitHub connection. So you can use Lovable as a starting point to get something running, but then if you export it to GitHub, then you're sort of, are you jumping off and leaving Lovable behind the pointer?
So you can work in any way you want, because there's a two-way sync. So if you are connected to GitHub, you can still use Lovable, and we push to GitHub for you. And then you can use cursor on the side of VS Code or whatever you want on your machine, and you can pull and push. So you can, there are multiple workflows. There are those who start with Lovable and then move on to their own IDEs, those who want to stay in Lovable, and then there are those who do more like, front end in Lovable and back end on their own editor. I think lots of people do that. I guess people like me, or you're just afraid of making any kind of front end, could work like that, and that's great. We love that.
That's awesome.
I think what's cool about the GitHub integration is that it enables collaboration, right? Like we don't have teams yet in Lovable. We're cooking some stuff that might enable that, but for now you can still collaborate with developers easily. They'll just do branches, merge them, and as soon as it's auto synced, and we see a lot of people using Lovable like that. But Harry, I'll hand it over to you. I know you've been working, and there were some issues, but it seems like we're up and running again.
Yeah, if it doesn't work once, disconnect it and try and connect it again, and it seems to work. So just to kind of recap as to what AI has been doing, it created and generated those courses really easily. It also takes like a topic. So an example was I was at dinner the other night with my family, both my Argentine and my English family, and was trying to think of questions to ask a barbecue. And it's called asado in Spanish. So let's see if I can get it to create a course now. Previously, we weren't instructing it to do it in Spanish. So as you may have seen, whilst the guys were talking, it was giving me some English questions. Now, hopefully it's updated it so that it knows you are a Spanish language tutor in here. But it's kind of cool. You can see how you can quickly change the persona of the AI. So if we were building another app that was maybe multiple languages, you could switch that dynamically to change it from a Spanish teacher to an English teacher to so a French teacher. Here are the questions to ask at a barbecue. Cool. So that's actually done it in Spanish. What carne do I prefer? A parrilla, carne asada. Do I want to try the salchichas? So helping me understand how to answer questions when people are saying like, do you want to try something? Yes, sí, claro. What drink do I want? Not a cerveza.
What I like about this is that I don't understand how there can be a wrong answer to some of these questions, right?
Yes, right. And like, there's probably some prompting here to fix this, but I do like that it's like, how do you like your carne? Okay, I have no idea what one it's going to choose. Okay, apparently ChatGPT likes it a little bit cooked in this case. Is there enough carb? Is there enough charcoal for the parrilla? I hope. Yeah, there's enough. Good. Okay. Let's try and blast through these and see if it got the ending. So brownie, apparently ChatGPT likes. What at what hour? With Argentinians, usually it's very late. So let's see if it gets it right. Oh, it's 6. Okay, it's very European British time. And there we go. Cool. Cool. And it even added the little bit at the end, and it gave us like the course completed. And it marks it as completed as well. These are all features I didn't ask for, but it added it so you can see the power of using Lovable to help expand on like the ideas you might have. And sometimes the AI adds stuff, and it's actually a feature, not a bug in this case. So we can review our course and go through the questions again if we want. I think one thing that I would really love to do here is use Replicate to generate an image for the cover photo of these courses when we go into it. So Zeke, I have Replicate up here. Is there a particular model that you would suggest for the image generation in this case?
Sure, but before we jump in, this is okay. I'm imagining that I'm working on this thing myself. So you just got something working, and this is kind of a crucial moment where you're like, okay, finally, I made it to a point where I know that this thing works. So what do you do now? Is there something like a milestone where you say like, okay, my code works right now, save this? Like, do you commit this to Git, or do you?
Zeke, you're touching upon sorry. Okay, Harry. I think that, so it's auto committed, but there's a long list of commits right after you've been iterating and trying a lot of things. But what I think is interesting is you're touching about something that has been like a heated topic of discussion in Lovable for the past 2 weeks. We're talking a lot about version management and how as you add more and more and more edits to your project, it gets actually pretty hard to know where you had that bookmark, that checkpoint where things are actually running fine, right? So we're thinking a lot about this, and the short answer is that no, there is no way of bookmarking starring. You can maybe like do a mental note on the name of the commit, but and there's a history tab as well on the top besides chat that shows all the different commits, but there is no easy way of sort of like bookmarking or checkpointing. So there's no developer equivalent of that exercise where you name a commit, and that actually makes recall much easier. But
I guess like the one closest thing we have to that is that you can deploy your app, so publish it, which means that it's going to go to like a real domain, which is not your preview domain. So this is how you can say, okay, now I'm ready for production and I'm going to publish it. But there's not going to be any kind of Git tags or anything just like that we developers would use. But it's funny you mentioned this. It feels like you were listening to our meeting just before this talk. I was talking about this with Christian. So we are going to do something about that.
I feel like everyone is running into this. It's kind of like, you go through this iterative process. It's not quite working. Finally, you get something working. Whew, okay. And then you want to like make sure you save that so you don't screw it up by continuing to talk to the AI and let it ruin all your code that previously worked. So anyway, good to know that that's on the radar. I think whoever gets that right is going to win in this sort of like developer next stage of developer tools is like just sort of encapsulating the entire. I want to add a feature or fix a bug and just wrap it up entirely in a. Here's the conversation. Here's the code. Here's the test. Here's the pull request or whatever we're considering like an atomic unit of work. Anyway, you asked what image generation model should be used. So Flux Schnell, which is if you just do a search on the top of the Replicate website for Flux, you'll probably see a bunch of different. Yeah, you can
Flux
see.
Schnell.
Yeah, that first one. This one's super fast. Schnell means fast in German. It doesn't. It's not the highest quality, but it's a good starting point. I mean, and depending on what our needs here are for this use case, the quality might be good enough. So Schnell's
Awesome.
probably a good first model to try out.
And if somebody wanted to integrate this, how where would they find the endpoint here in the API?
Yeah,
section?
so I think the best way to do it is you go to Playground,
Yep.
and then sort of basically fill out a prompt that is something along the lines of what you would actually be using in your app.
Let's just do something simple. The cover photo for a course that is talking about a barbecue. Wow, that was fast. Look at that.
You might want to change the aspect ratio to something more like a banner, right? So like 16 by 9 or so drop down.
Woo, look at that. Nice. Awesome.
Number of outputs is correct. If you scroll down a little bit, let's just look through this form a little and see if there's anything else we might want to change. WebP is a good format for images. I think the only thing wrong with WebP is that you can't drop a WebP image into a GitHub issue, but otherwise WebP is pretty widely supported. And yeah, go fast is an interesting one. We want to go fast by default. So this looks like a pretty good starting point. So
Awesome.
if you click now, if you scroll up a little bit, there's a tab that says Node.js. So this will actually show us the API code. I just scroll down a little bit to
Awesome. Here we are.
run this model using the exact same inputs that we use in the form. So this is my preferred sort of workflow. It's like work in the browser, get to some settings that I like, and then copy the code and bring it back to my application.
That's super important. I think this playground is super useful to, as you said, like tweak it to the point where you're happy with like the image output, and then take the code and just whack it into your project. Sounds really easy.
Yeah. Another thing you can do is if you go to the top of the page and click Playground Beta in the top right.
Playground Beta.
There you go. Yeah. And then you've never used it before, so it's just telling you what it is. And then in the top left, if you choose Flux Schnell should be on that list.
Redux Schnell.
That's a different one. Keep going.
Here we are.
There it is. Yeah. So now you can actually, if you took that prompt that you had on the other page, or just the new one, and just smash the enter key like 10 times.
Awesome. Look at that.
You just get a bunch of outputs. Yeah. So
super cool.
This is really useful if you're like wanting to tweak the prompt a little bit. So what I'll often do is type a prompt, hit enter 5 times, change the prompt a little bit, hit enter again 5 times, and it starts to give me a visualization of overall how is a prompt working versus other prompts that are similar. There you go.
Here's a good example. Oh my god, I don't know what that's shadow is.
That's a little weird.
Okay. We're getting weirder now.
Okay, yeah.
Cool. I think I've got
and
the
then
code still copied.
Yeah, similarly, you can still, if you click on one of these outputs on the right, and then you scroll down,
Look
there's the
at
code
that.
snippet for that running that.
Okay. So let's copy this then. I will go back to Lovable. Should be sharing. Okay. So I'm going to go to courses and I'm going to say for courses, when I click in to start a course, I want to show a banner image that persists across all questions at the top of the page using replicate. Here's the model specs that I like. So I'll just put this in, let this run.
And Harry, just a question.
Go ahead.
Do you want like every single time you play on the play a course that it creates a new image, or are you doing this on every time you create the course for the first time?
That's a good question. It's probably when I generate. So generate this when we initially generate the course. Here's the model specs from Replicate that I like. Make sure the prompt is dynamically set based on the user's course creation topic. Okay, first time running this, so let's see if it works. Maybe there's some questions to hit right now.
There's a question
Fingers
here.
crossed.
Maybe while it runs, Alex, I know we talked about this a couple of times. Are we doing anything in this?
About the links?
Yes.
Yeah. So I mentioned this before. Yes, we're definitely looking at that. And I think we know how we want this to work, and we have some kind of prototypes for this. So it's gonna come at some point if you just stick around.
Cool.
So what's quite cool about this is that Lovable's already been trained with a knowledge file, so it understands how to use Replicate. So I don't really need to tell it what to do here, just my requirements. You can see here it's generated a separate function for generating the image, and then it's applying that to our generate course flow as well.
How does it know how to npm install the Replicate?
Good question. Package? So what's very cool about Lovable and what we're building is that we can sort of give Lovable a set of skills. So in this case, we know Replicate is something that can enable our users to create a bunch of cool functionality. So what we do is we have kind of provide the right context to the model when it feels it's relevant. And in this case, Harry made it very clear that we want to work with Replicate. So the prompt has been sort of enhanced with Replicate relevant knowledge. And in this case, we knew that using the package is probably the way to go. So probably that's why the model chose to go that path. And I assume that's the way to go, Zeke.
Yeah, that makes sense.
Cool.
Yeah, and so our goal is to try to have coverage for the most frequent requested packages or APIs, I guess I would say. So obviously, a lot of these models that we use, they know this without really having us help them, but in this ecosystem of, especially in front-end ecosystem, things are changing all the time, so the data might be outdated, or this might be a new AI startup coming out of nowhere or something like that. And so we try to vet a little bit these integrations to test that, okay, we can okay, you can use OpenAI easy with any language model, but maybe Replicate might have a newer version of their package that is not known, and we try to make sure that we have a good integration with them.
Nice. Yeah, we actually are working on supporting LLMs.txt files for various Replicate endpoints, which are just sort of like language model friendly versions of docs that are just stripped down to basic markdown.
Yeah.
So we're trying to make that easier as well. It's interesting because we actually have two different models or two different HTTP API endpoints for running models. And there's the one that's been around since 2021 or 2022. Of course, that's the one that all the language models know about. So it's been kind of an uphill battle to try and get everyone switched over to the new thing, because everyone's using AI-based models that are trained from a year or two ago.
Yeah.
They don't know about the new endpoint yet.
I think it's pretty hard right now if you want to create a new programming language, or I've seen this for some, so I'm not going to give names, but I've seen this for some products that have maybe kept the same brand name but changed their product, and the LLMs are always referring to the old versions. Or I think it's going to be pretty tough to erase this knowledge, and then it doesn't make anyone to want to use that, which you can argue is a bit sad. But it's definitely something to keep in mind now when building software, that you want it to be easy to train on, or not to be confused with anything else. So it's a real thing.
I just noticed in the logs that, or I saw the code going by. It looks like I saw something about Dino. Is that what Lovable runs on?
No, so that's what the Superbase edge functions are running on.
Okay.
In the backend, yeah. And I don't know if anyone at Superbase is watching now, but when are you supporting Dino version 2? Everybody's waiting.
So it looks like the generation of the image worked. I just checked the logs, but for some reason it's not being set in the force. I'm going to try and just fix this and see if Lovable can do it in once. But if you think I'm, if you think that I'm a liar, here we are. Here was our generated image, and here was, this is where it came from. I can probably copy this to see what Replicate made for us. But we just need to wait right now to try and fix this.
I'm not sure what happened here, but one thing to keep in mind is that different models on Replicate have different output structures. So some image generation models will return a single string, which is the URL to the generated image. Other models will return an array with one or many URLs. So depending on how your code works, you might need to account for that.
Yeah, I'm thinking maybe it could be a good idea, Harry, to pop in a response example from Replicate's playground, or just make sure that's not
a good idea.
Yeah, I think that's what happened here. There's a mismatch between what is expected and the actual response. So the image is generated, but the front end cannot understand it.
Which makes me think, Alex, we should let the AI model read the network requests and understand what. That just seems like such an obvious thing to do.
So we are making some big improvements into that connection between front end and Superbase to make it able to debug and essentially see what you would see as just a software engineer or just a user of Lovable trying to to find some data. And we're already pretty good at this, but some parts of the equations are missing, and they're coming soon.
Cool. I can show you where you can go on the Replicate website to see what the actual JSON output looks like. That's helpful.
Thank you.
There it is. Okay, you're already there.
Right?
Yeah, so on the right side of the page, you've got that output, and there's the preview, which shows you the image, and then when you click the JSON tab, that's the actual raw response. So you'll see there's a key called output with an array and a single URL in it.
Let's do that then. So here's the, share this tab as well. Here's the response from, here's an example response from the Schnell model we are calling Replicate. Context is probably one of the biggest things that's useful for these kind of tools. So the guys immediately jumped on it, and I probably should have as well, that sometimes Lovable can't guess the response that Replicate will give. And as Zeke said as well, different models give different responses. So it's always good to give it context and to give it examples that it can then use to put together its version. As Zeke mentioned, and now Lovable has picked up on as well, we needed to extract the image URL from the output array in this case. So
sweet.
It should have done that.
I was reading the kind of spec for LLMs.txt earlier this week and noticing that initially that they sort of made it like robots.txt, where it was like, domain.com/robots or LLMs.txt. But then they've actually expanded it so that you can provide an LLMs.txt file for every individual URL. So you could imagine replicate.com/owner/model/LLMs.md or whatever it is. I forget. It's got a slightly different format. But the gist is you could make custom LLM text files for any given model or any given page on your site. And then it would just be a matter of copying that in some editors you just give it the URL, in others you go to the URL in your browser, copy all the content, and dump it into your chat.
Yeah. So the one thing that is pretty tricky with these docs and scraping them online is that they might be super large, especially if you have open API specifications or something like this, which might make it pretty hard to process for the model, or just too expensive as well, which is a consideration. So I guess generally when you write something for an AI as an input, you want it to be as short as possible, as concise as possible, and have a nice, easy separation that makes it very easy to decide, which chunk or which part to use. And so the specification goes in that direction. Then you have some great products like Firecrawl or Jena Reader. If you use that online, are pretty good at scraping any URLs and transforming them into Markdown, for example. And they keep getting better, and they can even scrape the links. So if you go on a website, they can really scrape the entire website and return to you something structured. That makes sense. And this is pretty great. And this is what the tools like Cursor, I assume, are using to fetch documentation and get something a bit more readable than raw HTML, which is not readable at all.
Yeah, the size issue is definitely something I'm curious about. So we have this tool called Cog, which is an open source tool for building models. So every model on Replicate is a Cog model, which is kind of a project for writing a Python implementation of a model and wrapping it in a Docker container, an HTTP service around it. And so I wrote this LLM.txt file for all the Cog docs, and I'm like, I wonder which language models are going to be able to support this whole thing fitting into the context window without sort of like, forgetting or being too long. Then I thought, as you were talking, maybe there's a use case for scraping all of the content and stuffing it into a language model and asking it to remove all of the redundancies or strip it down into something shorter.
Yeah. So this
something
is
to explore.
Yeah, you can always pre-process things to extract the relevant bits. Then it's basically a matter of speed and cost based on the use case. So Harry, we're getting some issues, and I guess it's because we have a mismatch between what we want and what we get as a response, right?
I think so. So I was using the wrong model. Now I'm looking back again. It's saying the response that was given was not a JSON object.
Maybe we should check the edge function logs.
That's a great shout.
When you say using the wrong model, you mean a different GPT model? Or
yeah, it was using GPT-4.
So how did that happen?
So this is very, I can definitely answer for these sort of things. And it goes back to what we talked about before, where so some language models, we know some versions of APIs, or in this case of language models exposed by some providers. So for example, OpenAI has GPT-4 that came out 2 years ago, soon 3, I guess. And so GPT-4 is going to be something that if you ask, I don't know, ChatGPT or Claude, they might recommend you to use this, even though you should not use GPT-4 anymore, the original version. And that's something that we have worked on to make sure that we are using more recent versions. But it's definitely possible that sometimes the models go back to their original knowledge and just insist on using something that they think is new, where it's not anymore. So in this case, I think Harry had to say, no, don't use GPT-4. There's GPT-4o. It's much cheaper, much faster. I think GPT-4 was pretty expensive when it came out, and it's quite a bit slower, so we don't want to use that.
So we're just doing the classic, which is going backwards and forwards with a bug to see if we can fix it. One of the useful things with building with Lovable is you do understand a little bit of basic of code, just so you can kind of jump in like I have and just see some of the errors, some of the other things the guys are calling out as well, and see if you can fix it. But we're getting there.
And so I guess Christian is thinking about the same thing as I am, is that we this is gonna get so much better in the coming days. That specific flow, the specific troubles you're going through right now, because we're gonna connect much better to Supabase and gonna have a much tighter integration. So you won't really have to do this back and forth and looking at the logs. And I think it's gonna solve a lot of issues. And I guess here this would have solved it very quickly by seeing the right logs directly. Oh, there
Yes.
Oh, look
Persistence.
at that.
This is where again you celebrate. You smoke a cigarette, you have a beer, and you bookmark.
Everything.
You edit.
Yeah. You take your wife on a date tonight. You love life. This looks really cool. I'm actually pretty impressed with the UI as well that is put together, like adding that fade to the banner image so like seamlessly integrates. And again, this is like that whole thing of like letting the AI do its thing sometimes and enjoying the additions. Which of the felines is the biggest in the world? A tiger, a leopard? I have no idea what a guepardo is or a lince, so I'm going to go for a tiger. Woo! Nice. We'll keep going, but that's pretty cool. It added the image. We can try it again. Let's just see. So we'll change the topic this time. Does anybody have in chat something they would like it just to generate so we can test this truly with you guys?
All right, let's see.
What can we generate?
While we're waiting for that chat thing to come in, I gotta say, I love how coolly you just sort of like worked through these bugs on a live stream. You're like, oh, no big deal. It doesn't work, but I'm not gonna panic.
It's AI coding. It's just this is the life of an AI coding.
It's my day-to-day praying to the AI that it can figure out the error. So vertical farming. Okay.
Foods as well. Learn foods.
Foods. We can do both, hey? Vertical farming, I'm interested to see what this is. Words around vertical farming. Foods is a good one as well.
Cool. And so in the meantime, I have this question about, someone asking about the improvement of the edge functions and saying that I'm somewhat happy because you're running in the same problems I had. So I guess we can all relate to that. And yeah, so as I said, we have some big improvements coming. And so if you're asking me when it's coming out, I guess you sound a lot like my coworkers in the meeting today. But it's coming very soon. So it's ready. We have some prototypes, and we hope this can maybe come in a week or two. Let's say that.
Okay, awesome. And we've got some food items. I just did vertical farming. It added some text to the image, which I imagine you can prompt out, which is probably where the playground comes really into use, I imagine, Zeke, because you can test against that to make sure it doesn't happen when you're generating.
Can we take a look at the part of the code that's actually got the prompt template in it for generating images?
Absolutely. Here we go. A beautiful and engaging educational scene about our topic that we define. Digital art style, vibrant colors, educational theme. So I guess I just add to this, don't include words, right?
Yeah, that's what I would do.
Cool. So this is cool about iterating. Include words.
While Harry is iterating, I can go back a bit on the series of errors that we have, because I think some users in the chat are asking about how we fix that. And so I think the key when you have these errors is to know if it's fixable or not. Maybe go back to previous working state. But in this case, I think what Harry did is that he did not just press the button to fix over and over and over again, which I think once you reach a certain point, you can be kind of sure it's not gonna get out of it. So you basically need to help it. And so what it did here is that it tried to go to in this case, with the edge function logs, and retrieve them and add them and give some context around what we were trying to do. Basically, just hinting into what the right where the problem is. And when Lovable knows where the problem is, it's much easier to really focus on that rather than if you give a generic, oh, here is a random error, which I think as a developer you maybe also struggle with. So that's the key here for getting out of this. But I totally understand that it doesn't always work. It's not like we're saying that you can always prompt your way out of everything. That would not be true, I think. But you can definitely make, increase the odds quite a lot if you try to communicate about the problem.
Nice. I am going to now just double check that this generates with the right image.
I like how you asked it. You asked for words, Harry, just to test the strength of the prompter.
Yes. Yeah. And then we can move on to, let's see. Ta-da! No words. Perfect. That's cool. And it did it in an artistic style and super clean. Wow. Okay. Right. We've got a couple of minutes, but as you can see from all of this, one of the things I think that we can jump on is real-time conversations. That's probably one of the easier ones. But we'll be sure to add some of the other features that we didn't have time to get to in the next session. So in this case, again, I have a prompt. And we're going to add a new page called real-time. When the user goes to this page, we're going to use OpenAV real-time with WebRTC to connect users to a real-time voice agent. So let's see if that works. We're going to just hit prompt and add to that.
Cool. And I don't know if any of you are using the real-time version of ChatGPT, but I'm a big fan. I'm actually having a lot of conversations. It's super nice. It's like basically you got unlimited knowledge just a chat away, and you can go deep, double click on stuff by just asking it to go deeper. It's been a bit of your personalized podcast, more or less, when you're driving or walking somewhere.
I just wish it was a better model than GPT-4. I want 01 real time, or 03, I guess.
It's always useful when you're freaking out about an email and you need somebody to talk to. That's my guy for those points now. Let's see.
It's pretty wild. The real-time, the OpenAI real-time thing is also like a polyglot, multilingual. You can just talk in whatever language you want, and it can just seamlessly switch between languages.
A cool example is that as I had it out on my phone with a friend who speaks Spanish and just speaking into it like, hey, can you explain to my friend that I love him? And it then just blasts it out in Spanish, right? Like super cool. Cool. So this worked, I believe. Let's see. It added everything that we needed. I hope that's the right model. I think it is. The prompt is perfect. You're a helpful Spanish teacher. Help the user practice their Spanish conversation skills. So that was one shot, I think. And if you haven't watched the previous episode, we already set our API key for OpenAI, so it's using that. But in your case, if you add this, it will ask you to add the API key. You can go generate that from the OpenAI website. Just go to Dashboard, Settings, API Keys, and you should be able to find it and add it in here. Okay, I'm going to real time. And let's see if it works. You guys should all be able to hear my audio from the tab. So let's see.
It takes a while sometimes. It doesn't show the loading indicator.
Hello, is this working?
Oh, we couldn't hear, but I guess you heard something.
I heard it. Yes, I can hear right now coming through.
There's gonna be some conspiracies in the comments now that you're just faking it, Harry.
How can I get my audio sharing so that you can all hear it?
Sharing a tab. Sharing a tab should do the trick from Restream.
Let me have a look. Chrome tab, and then I'll pull up the deployed version so that we can do it via this instead. Cool. Using my very good email. Let's sign in. Cool. Oh, it's a bad password. Okay. Start conversation. Let's see if this works now.
You're not sharing your screen, Harry.
Yeah.
Let me go back. Can you guys
No.
see in here?
Es un buen comienzo. ¿Puedes intentar decir lo mismo en español? Puedes decir
Oh, nice.
estoy cansado si eres un chico o estoy cansada si eres una chica.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
Sí, te escucho. ¿Puedes intentar decir algo en español?
And
Es una-
she's telling me that she can hear me in Spanish as well. You notice when I start talking, it cuts it off, which is pretty cool. So maybe what I can do here is I'll end this conversation and just refresh the page for the doodles for the hell of it. Let's start a conversation. I'll see if I can do something here. We're very bad Spanish.
No te preocupes. Todos empezamos desde cero. Vamos a practicar.
So she
Puedes decir
says, don't worry about not speaking bad Spanish. We can practice. So in this case, I'll say, can we talk about asado? Vamos a hablar asado.
claro que sí. El sábado es un buen tema.
Del
¿Qué-
asado.
Bien
El
hecho.
Salvador.
Los sábados son geniales para descansar. A veces también hago lo mismo.
What
¿Te
are
gusta?
some simple words that you could teach me in Spanish?
Por supuesto, aquí tienes algunas palabras simples en español. Hola, hello, gracias, thank you, por favor, please, adiós, goodbye, sí, no, yes. Intenta usarlas en una conversación. Puedes intentar
What are some questions that I could ask my friends at a barbecue?
en una barbacoa, podrías hacer preguntas como 1. ¿Te gusta la comida? Do you like the food? 2. ¿Prefieres carne o verduras? Do you prefer
So I think it's mission accomplished here, where we managed
Nice.
to add real time, which is really cool.
Would you forgive the AI for for not understanding sábado and asado, Harry?
And I think this like really speaks to the OpenAI endpoint and like how this technology is still super new. So they're still training it, and I think that in general, speaking to it works. Maybe it doesn't get like my pronunciation of asado, and it thinks I'm saying sábado. And somebody in the chat is telling me, hey, you're pronouncing that wrong as well. Like this is it. This is the app. That's why we have this app now. You know, we're hoping to improve my Spanish overall.
It's an intervention, Harry, to help you with Spanish.
Exactly, and everybody in chat's helping me as well. So thanks, guys, for explaining how to pronounce that better. I think we're pretty close for time here, so I won't bother with any more features for now. But know that in the next live stream that we work on, we'll be adding some more to this to get it fully ready. Let's just recap what we've made, and then I'll hand it over to the guys to talk. So previously, we built a dashboard and a chat and a login experience so that we could talk to an AI tutor, which Christian built, and that's now working. Today, with the help of Zeke and the team at Replicate, we've been able to build a course generation so that we can generate courses. And then on top of that, we're using Replicate's API to add some really nice images as well. And then finally, very quickly, we added real time. We'll try and improve this for the next stream, but we can now talk to our AI tutor as well. So I think we're starting to get closer to a production ready app. What do you guys think?
Yeah, I think this is awesome. And the real time stuff, just like it was just one shot, right? One message.
One prompt. Yeah, one prompt, and we were
That was
good.
really impressive.
Cool. No, this is great. Yeah, so please keep your eyes open for the next session. We're going to be doing these weekly or bi-weekly. We're always going to do office hours, but it might be part of a zero to launch or something else. But yeah, just keep your eyes open. Zeke, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your knowledge on AI models and image generation, video generation. Thank you also for giving our users a coupon to be able to create an account that Replicate and start testing the models. Guys, like please go to Replicate. Sign up and try using Replicate in conjunction with Lovable. I'm sure there's a lot of cool stuff you guys can build. Go ahead.
Just a quick shout out. Stefan's putting links on. There's one for Replicate. Zeke and his team very kindly shared some credit discounts with us. So I think for the first 400 users, you can get a $50 discount. So make sure you scan that and use it if you want to build some of the same features we had. And then also, I think he put up a link to the Discord. I'll be in there for sure for the next 10 to 15 minutes. If you have any general questions that you'd like to answer, I'll see you all in general.
Yeah, cool. Zeke, any closing thoughts on your side, Zeke?
This is really fun. This all just seems like part of the natural progression towards conversational software development. So super fun. Thanks for having me.
Thanks for your help.
And then maybe the last thing, if you want to see previous episodes, go to YouTube. We're always posting them. And see you next week. And thank you everybody for being here and for asking us questions. See you next time.
You're awesome. Thank you.